There once lived a terribly absent-minded fellow who every morning would forget where he had put his clothes the night before, and that, of course, made him late for everything. So one day, a friend gave him the following advice. Look, don't try to remember anything, just write it all down on a sheet of paper, which he then proceeded to do, jotting down such details as, my coat is on the chair, my shoes are under the chair, my hat and my gloves on the table, and I am in my bed. Well, he slept wonderfully that night, and the next morning was lucky enough to find the sheet of paper. Quick now, he exclaimed, where's the coat? Ah, yes, there it is, on the chair. And the shoes? Well, they were under the chair. So he had practically put everything on in a shot, and it made him feel pretty spiffy. He wanted to tell the whole world he had finally hit upon the solution to all of his problems. But then his eyes fell upon the last item on the list, and he was all at once filled with horror to find that he wasn't, in fact, in his bed. He wasn't even under the bed. And in a terrible frenzy, he began looking all over the room, all over the house, becoming ever more confused and depressed in this blind and desperate search for himself, reduced in the most pathetic way to asking over and over again, and I, where am I? You know, it's a bit like waking up in a place like Steubenville, surrounded by a thick miasma of smog and pollution, when you could have sworn you had gone to bed the night before, nestled in the Swiss Alps. I should think that a bit off-putting. But in fact, this is, I think, the basic question that confronts us all. It's the question of human identity, of knowing precisely who we are. Where do we begin? Where do we leave off? What is the connection between this ephemeral moment, which is so fleeting, so fugitive, and that eternity towards which we are moving even now? Between this workaday world, which I'm immersed in inescapably, and that line of horizon I am moving towards, namely my ultimate destiny. Why are we here? Why is anything here? Why is there being rather than nothingness? The darkest question of all philosophy, because it is just as plausible that nothing in fact should exist as that anything at all does exist. And of course, where is it all going? You don't have to be like that chap in Kafka, who woke up one morning and found himself turned into a giant cockroach, or perhaps it was a centipede, to wonder what is the point of it all. Why are things as they are? Why is anything? Why not nothing? These may be the darkest questions of philosophy, but they are the ones that stand most in need of the light. They awaken in us the deepest, most driving need to know. But to know what? Not the solution to a problem. Where are my bloody shoes? But the resolution of a mystery. Where am I? What am I? Where am I going? And isn't this really what an intensely Catholic education ought to be about? The cultivation of a lively sense of wonder that may eventuate in wisdom and delight. Why else would so many parents be paying big bucks to have their children matriculate at distinguished institutions? And here I think we touch upon the real meaning of liberal education, namely those things we are not at liberty to omit. And why is that? Because at the deepest level they determine what it means to be a complete human being. After all, where does the word come from? It comes from the Latin liber, which means free, as opposed to servile, that condition which bespeaks the state of a slave. Men and women sunk in a state of servility, languishing in Plato's cave. And the distinction reaches all the way back to Aristotle. We find it in St. Paul, in Augustine, Aquinas, John Henry Newman. The point is, it is infinitely preferable to spend your day reading Homer, or Sophocles, or Dante, or Shakespeare, or T.S. Eliot, than, say, cutting the grass, or filling the crankcase of your car with fresh oil, even if the grass is 10 feet high and the crankcase suddenly empty. This is because liberal pursuits, by definition, liberate. They set us free. They aim at the perfection of the human personality, the pursuit of intellectual excellence for its own sake. These are, if you will, disciplines that lay claim to an intrinsic importance, unlike other pursuits which are merely of instrumental value, like typing, or bookkeeping, or automotive repair. They are wonderfully useful in terms of something you need to do, but really in terms of something more useful than themselves. For example, a word processor, an email account. These can be marvelous and convenient instruments of modern technology. But surely one's mastery of the keyboard depends on one's having something to say. Maybe a sonnet, an essay, a book, or even a letter to someone you love. God, your mother, your girlfriend. I suspect my wife would have spurned me long ago if I hadn't taken the trouble to type all those wonderful letters I sent her. So arthritic, so unspeakably awful was my penmanship. But good heavens, it wasn't the typing that won her heart. Can you imagine someone saying, well, you know, he really is something of a pinhead, a hockey puck, but by George, that man can really type. I love how Chesterton puts it. Modern man, he said, is someone who, having invented the loudspeaker, suddenly realized he had nothing to say. Or as my drill sergeants used to put it when I was in the Army, you guys don't know where you're going, so you can hurry up and wait. We're on our way. In other words, modern man has forgotten the end, the purpose for which God has made him. And so what does he do? He suddenly redoubles the means. And of course, when the means become autonomous, they become deadly. The triumph of technique at the expense of truth, telos, which is, I think, everywhere in evidence in the world of secular education. What really is the point of becoming computer literate if you haven't got anything to say? Stuck in cyberspace, but without a compass. Like that New Yorker cartoon I read many years ago. You've got two guys looking at a computer, and they will shortly plug into the World Wide Web. And one guy says to the other, I don't get it, Fred. Here we are, riding the crest of the information age, and nobody knows anything. So, if you don't know where you're going, then maybe there's no point in being on the way. Why don't you solve the problem of your own identity first, before you set out to conquer the universe, or even to get your first job at McDonald's or a local pizza parlor? Get yourself educated, liberally, and be free. Thank you.